It is my extreme pleasure to welcome to the studio for the very first time two of the members of the new Emerson, Lake and Powell. Cozy Powell.
How you doing?
Welcome to MuchMusic, who we know from Jeff Beck, Michael Schenker, Richie Blackmore, and a man whose keyboard work I've admired for years and years and years, Keith Emerson.
Hi, JD.
Welcome to MuchMusic.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So this is the first tour as the new Emerson, Lake, or new ELP, Emerson, Lake and Powell. And I read in a lot of press interviews and a lot of articles on the band that you wanted to do North America as the lead-off part of the tour rather than starting in the UK first. And it would seem to me that it would be perhaps a little more advantageous from a financial standpoint to start the tour at home and then move across the Atlantic. Why did you want to start it here first?
I think there's a more positive attitude here in America and Canada towards bands of our stature. And you need a lot of positiveness, a lot of positive reaction when you start out. England is kind of a bit weird, you know. It's more for new up-and-coming bands, fashionable bands, and you know, you've got to get your gold lamy jacket on and all that
what you look like over there. They don't really want to know about what you can play or if you can play. It's whether you're in vogue at the time.
They're more into serious music and music itself, and we just needed a positive reaction to start off and get the band off on a good footing, you know.
What does it do to you as a person who would love to exist in the home market to get that groundswell of support behind you, to know that when you come back home you're a hero, to know that the music press in England really isn't all that concerned with music as much as they are with hairstyles and what the person's wearing? I mean, it doesn't seem to be, to me, too conducive to having a not only a successful career, but at least a very fruitful musical songwriting career.
Yeah, most of the bands come over here anyway, of the style of music that we play. I mean, Genesis come over here and work over here first, Stevie Winwood. All the people that have been around for a while come to America and Canada to start off. Very few of them start off in England, because for some reason you just can't do anything over there unless you get slagged off. It's just hopeless. So you come over here first and just get your act together, and then go back there. Maybe they'll like you then. Right,
so home is home, but you start off making the money and getting the support over here, right?
Home is here at the moment.
Yeah, really.
Who have you noticed has been coming out to the gigs? Fans of the old ELP, fans of the new, or a cross-section of both?
We played El Paso, and it was definitely a new audience down there, wasn't it? I mean, we certainly got a lot of the old ELP fans coming to see us, but, you know, a lot of new as well.
The show is a mixture of old and new as well, isn't it? I read that you didn't want to rely too much on past material because this was essentially a new band, and that you had done a lot of writing together. The new album is out, of course, under the new name. Right. There are probably future projects that will exist under the same name. So how much of the show would be past material, and how much would be what you're doing now, what you're looking forward to?
I guess we do about 75% of the new album, and the rest of it is taken up with the older material. But it's rearranged and reworked to suit this guy's
It's all my fault, folks.
drumming.
I noticed that the depth of the drumming is a little greater with Emerson, Lake and Powell than it was in the past. Carl Palmer had a sort of a rat-tat-tat-tat sound to it, listening back to some of the old LPs, whereas Cozy's is like...
I just admire
He's grinning.
I'm saying nothing.
You enjoy being on the road with this lot?
No, it's terrible. Can't wait to finish. No, it's great fun. It's great to be involved again in a three-piece band for me, being a drummer, because you've got such a great opportunity to play and expose, you know, your vocabulary. It's great.
Right, and if you go off on a tangent, there's only going to be 2 people coming after you as opposed to 3 or 4.
Well, I've got 2 sticks, I can hit both of them in. And you get 4 people in the band, it's real difficult. You've got to keep picking them up and throwing them.
On the first track on side 1 of the new LP, The Score, there's a line in there, "Welcome back, my friends. You're welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends," which is a line, of course, from my favorite Emerson, Lake and Palmer track, which is Carnival 9, Second Impression. Is this "Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends"? Is it brand new? And how do you feel being back out again after, I guess it's been, what, 5, 6 years since you last toured?
Well, Greg wanted to make the statement, like, it's just, you know, great to be back again, and that piece of music summed it all up, really. And it's become sort of like a punchline with us anyway, so, and it worked well with that particular piece. So.
It's a great line. I remember that one. See the Gypsy Queen in a glaze of Vaseline will perform a guillotine, what a scene, what a scene. Got the whole thing down.
I didn't even know it went like that.
Right. Let's welcome them back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Here's Touch and Go. This is Emerson, Lake and Powell on MuchMusic. Touch and Go from Emerson, Lake and Powell in stereo on MuchMusic. Keith, reading the credits from the LP, I didn't notice any credits to emulators, to Fairlights, any computer music programming at all. The only thing I saw was credits to things like PPG synthesizers, which have been around for a number of years. Did you use any of the new technologies, and if not, did you have to?
I didn't use a lot of the digital synthesizers. What I did find that mixing digital sampled sounds with analog synthesizers was a bit like trying to mix oil and water together. They didn't blend very well. Although, however, I did end up using the Kurzweil system, which is very good and suits it all. But I mean, the Fairlight is just a, you know, I mean, people get into drawing little pictures with it and get into ecstasies about looking at the waveforms and all that sort of thing. I like an instrument you can go to switch it on and play it, you know. I haven't got the patience to sort of like type things up and, you know.
Yeah, I can't picture somebody like yourself or perhaps Rick Wakeman sitting down at one of these little screens and doing it. I always picture with all these keyboards around you and just getting up there and playing.
Yeah, I get into analog quite a lot, you know, like developing my own programs. It seems a little more accessible than sitting at a typewriter and typing in sounds that way. I just haven't got the patience for that sort of thing.
ELP's music, both old and new for me, has we've set it up that some people seem to paint musical landscapes. They want a picture to come into your head when they're creating their music. To me, your music has been more atmospheric. It's been almost like if you go to the concert hall, as I did many times to see ELP, you would feel like you were in this massive environmental chamber and you were free to take the audience anywhere that you wanted to go. And it's happened on record as well.
Yeah. Well, it's the concept approach, isn't it, really? Although we didn't quite achieve that on this album.
No, we will on the next one.
You think we will?
Yeah, of course we will.
Not a concept album.
There's 3 musical suites that lead off the LP. Is that to introduce old fans to the new ELP, or did you just want to pursue that same musical direction?
Well, there was no real plan, no formula for this album. I mean, Keith had obviously got a lot of music written before I came along, and it was a case of coming in and rearranging it to suit the new style of the band and getting the first. You've got to put your foot in the water again after such a long time. And they said it is a new band. We want to make sure that, you know, the direction is right. And I think the next album, because we've had a chance to play with each other more, you know, for the last year or so, and on the road, the playing's going to get a lot tighter. The next album will be a lot tighter than that.
I just noticed that side 2, with the exception of the 10-minute opus of Holtz's Mars, the Bringer of War, is much more song-oriented than side 1.
A lot more
song-oriented, like the songs are shorter, like Touch and Go, and there's a few other tracks in there that are much shorter.
It's a formula that I've stuck to from the 70s, really. But coming back to this album, we were quite anxious that Cozy's drum sound came across. We were very much aware that a lot of other bands were using their drummers, like the drummer would come in the studio, sample the sound, you know, sample the snare drum, sample the bass drum, sample the cymbal, thank you very much, bye-bye. Drummer goes home and the guy plays with it on the computer and does it that way. We really wanted to, I mean, Cozy wouldn't have gone for that, and we just wanted to keep the sound that he'd had in the past and, you know, and play along with that.
But so much of the world nowadays is concerned with the 3 or 4 or 4.5-minute pop song, and yet you do have some of that on the LP, although the music sounds a little bit different than most of what we're used to, but you're not afraid to go into the longer pieces, the suites. And do they still work for you in the 1980s? Do you think they work with the audience?
Well, I mean, obviously there is a demand from the record company to come up with something which gets airplay, you know, and it's got to be the right length. It's a little bit limiting for me sometimes, but you do that because that is what is expected, don't you, really?
I think if you combine both the songs and the concept pieces on an album, there's not many bands today that would do that sort of thing.
No.
And I think if we can combine the two, then, you know, we've got something going that a lot of bands wouldn't do. And I suppose because of the track history of ELP, it's something that the real fans of the band would want us to continue doing anyway.
Yeah. I imagine it's getting a little more difficult to get radio play on those type of songs, though, isn't it?
Well, these few $100 bills goes wonders. Goes wonders with the DJ.
Oh, I heard about you guys in Florida a while ago. Your music has always evoked an atmosphere of almost a combination of something medieval with some future world that might exist at some point in time. Sort of a strange bringing together of the Dark Ages with what might exist in the year 3000. Are you preoccupied with perhaps what happened 1,500 years ago, and perhaps what's
Not a lot, no.
I think that's a combination of, you know, Keith comes up with this ethereal music from time to time.
Very ethereal.
Very ethereal, yeah. And it's down to Greg's interpretation of the lyrics. I mean, obviously, when you listen to the lyrics that Greg writes, You can just close your eyes and be, like you say, anywhere, depending on which song it is, whichever song he's taking you to, then you can go there. And that's the nice thing about the way he writes lyrics. So.
Yeah, sometimes I can see this grand castle sitting on a knoll in England, and other times I can see this crazy future world where people are being beaten up by beasts and battling robots and computers.
That's all good stuff. We've got to have a bit of that these days. Music does get too serious from time to time, and you can also, we can diversify a little bit. Go from one thing to the other.
Jazz influences were a very big part of the early days of ELP. Since that time, have you been taking on more influences? Have you been listening to anybody that you really like?
Well, from the new wave stuff, well, I like Sting and Police, bands like that.
You like Madonna too, don't you?
Yeah.
Madonna.
Have you seen her new movie yet?
Secret Madonna fan. What?
Have you seen her new movie yet?
No.
Apparently it's a good idea not to, but at any rate.
Yeah. No, Nick Kershaw's good. Who do you like?
Howard Jones?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Howard Jones is very good.
Yeah.
Good attitude, that man has.
That's, my favourite music is still the first albums that I ever bought are still very, dear to me. And a lot of those are jazz albums. I started off being a jazz purist.
He drives us mad with it, Thelonious Monk at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's great stuff.
Coming to the hotel wall.
What else could you listen to at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I don't know.
A little Vivaldi, maybe, but... For the people who are going to see you tonight in Montreal, the grandeur of the stage show is always an integral part of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Right. Even looking at the Works tour, where you tried to go on tour with a 115-piece orchestra and choir, which unfortunately had to be dismantled after a couple of days. How important now is the presentation of the show? Perhaps have you scaled it down a little bit in favor of more just straight musicianship, or have you put it all the way over the top? What's going on?
Well, we're very adaptable, but the stage production for us, I feel, enhances the music a lot, and it's become an expected part of us to, satisfy that need.
Because I remember the hydraulic drum kits and the rotating chairs.
Yeah, right.
Everything that used to go on.
Well, we've put a lot into this new production, and it's we've got $1.5 million worth of video equipment that is used to enhance the settings of each number that we do. And there are pyrotechnics. Well, we don't want to tell too much about it. This guy almost blows himself up every night.
I'll succeed one day.
Have you blown your eyeballs
I
out
blew
yet?
myself up last night.
I can see that. I read a review of last night's show. It said, pompous, you bet, but would you expect anything else, and would you want anything else?
Well, we try and deliver. That's the general idea of being here.
Well, listen, thanks a lot for dropping by. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. Nice to meet you, Cozy. Before you go, we have a couple of shirts for you here.
Goodness me.
We have one for Keith. There you are. The official MuchMusic black T-shirt. Also one for Cozy. There you are.
Thank you very much.
And for the dear departed Greg Lake, who is in Montreal as we speak, there's one for him as well.
Yeah, lovely. We'll pass that on to him.
Great. Anything special that you guys would like to see? Because you only have one video from the ELP LP.
What did we pick?
What did we pick? We thought we'd pick an oldie, actually.
An oldie?
Yeah. The Beatles. Is it, I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Something like that, yeah.
Speaking of the 3-minute pop song.
Not yet, dear.
Great. Would you guys like to take over here? Just throw to it on 3.
Introduce it, my dear.
Oh, right.
That camera
Which
there.
camera? This camera over here?
Okay.
Okay.
This one right here.
Right, this next video is the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.